Welcome back to Eve Math Tutoring. Today's lesson is going to be on factoring polynomials. So say you're given the following polynomial and you're asked to factor it fully. x3 plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 6. And the question is to factor this fully. So what you have to do is, you don't know what you're supposed to divide by, so you have to look at the last number and think of numbers that go into this number. So the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 6, and all of them could be positive or negative. And then you start substituting those numbers into the equation and seeing which one will give you 0. So say I tried 1, and I plugged 1 in, positive 1 cubed plus 2 times 1, minus 5 times 1 minus 6. So if I work that out, I would get 1 plus 2. And I would use BEDMAS here. When I'm doing this, I would do exponents first, and then I would do multiplication, right? So you always have to use BEDMAS whenever you're working out any math question. Minus 5 minus 6. So I would get 1 plus 2, so I would get negative 8. So in this case, it doesn't equal 0. So that means I'm not going to divide by x minus 1. So I'm going to try another number. I'm going to try positive 2. So when I plug in positive 2, I get 2 cubed plus 2 times 2 squared minus 5 times 2 minus 6. So here we get 8. And then 2 squared is 4 times 2 is 8 minus 10 minus 6. 16 minus, and yes, it equals 0. So that means I'm going to divide the equation, this equation up here, I'm going to divide it by x minus the number that I plugged in. So x minus 2 is what I'm going to divide this equation by. So we're going to divide it by, so basically we figure out we're going to divide by x minus 2. So x minus 2 into x3 plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 6. So now I just use long division, which I covered in a previous video. So how many times does x go into x3? So this is actually x to the 1. So it goes in x to the 2 times. So because 3 minus 1 is 2. So 2, and then you multiply this times this. So x to the 2 times x to the 1 is x to the 3. So x to the 2 times x to the 1. Because you have the same base, you add the exponents, and you get x to the 3. So we get x to the 3, and then negative 2 times x squared is negative 2x squared. And we subtract. This minus this, these are both like terms, so I can subtract them. This minus this is 0, x cubed. So I don't need to write anything down. And then 2 minus negative 2 becomes 2 plus 2, so it becomes 4x squared. And then I bring down the 5x. And then, so then I say, how many times does x go into 4x squared? Well, it goes positive 4x times. And then 4x times x is 4x squared. And then 4x times negative 2 is negative 8x. And then I subtract. So negative 5 minus negative 8 becomes negative 5 plus 8. So that becomes 3x. And I bring this down. And then x goes into 3x 3 times. So I write plus 3. I multiply the plus 3 times x to get 3x. I multiply the positive 3 times negative 2 to get negative 6. And then when I subtract this, I get a 0 remainder. And that's what you want. So that means you did factor by something that goes into this equation when you get a 0 remainder. And then you can look at this part. You want to factor the equation fully. So you want to see here if you can factor this any further. So here I would look at this and I would think of two numbers that add to 4, positive 4, and multiply to positive 3. And those two numbers would be 1 and 3. So that means the top actually factors to, so we have x minus 2, and then we have x plus 1, x plus 3. So that would be the fully factored form of the original equation. So we figured this part out, and now we figured out this part, but we want to factor that further. So we think of two numbers that add the middle term multiplied with the last term. That would be 1 and 3. So we replace those in there, and we have the fully factored form of the equation. Okay, so I hope that helped you understand how to factor a polynomial.